Hello there, Comic Clan, and welcome to Comics in the Cross, the greatest YouTubers that you've never heard of. I'm your host for today, Cross, and I am joined by Nitro and LJ the Paladin as we are back for our special Spooky Month Halloween themed indie comic book club. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me for today's episode. I appreciate you all being here.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. This could be fun talking about this one.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. As you guys can see up on the screen at the minute, and probably from the title of the video and the thumbnail, we are doing The Devil That Wears My Face from Mad Cave Studios. Written by David Pepose, amazing artwork from Alex Cormack. This was kind of my recommendation put forward for a Halloween spooky book, because when I do horror books on here, I want to do horror. I want to do something that's like that properly fits that. And I felt like this was a really good one, and I felt like it really fits the bill for especially the more you get into the book. By the time you get to issue 6, it definitely fits the bill.
Oh yeah. And obviously, as per usual, we're going to spoil the bejesus out of this book. So if you haven't read it yet, this is your cue to pause.
Yes. I will
read
put
it,
links
and then come back.
down below. Go and pick it up for yourself. Go and check it out. Go and support. And I want to give a massive shout out to Mad Cave Studios. This is not supported. This is not sponsored by them in any way, but they have been a massive, amazing company that's been so beneficial to helping us out here on the channel, just giving us access to people, to creators, to comics. So it's a pleasure to be able to review something like this. And David Pepose is an old friend of the channel at this point, so any chance to shout him out is absolutely amazing.
Agreed.
All right, so kick it off with first thoughts then. What did you guys think of The Devil That Wears My Face?
LJ, you want to go first?
It's super good. Extremely well written. It's definitely one of those books I kept reading it and I kept going and going, and it definitely was like, it's definitely stacked. Like it feels much longer than I expected it would be.
Yeah.
But it's also super good. A lot of twists and turns. The concept is absolutely fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you get into like the characters and everything like that, and kind of as they get further, you start to learn more about them, and it's so good. It's such a much bigger journey than I expected it to be.
Yeah.
And a lot of heavy spiritual themes and stuff like that, which is really good. The imagery is fantastic, and just the way they depict everything. There's definitely some panels that totally stick out. Which is great. It's super good. It's probably one of my favorite things I've read this year as we've gone along and started doing this.
So I opened the copy, obviously, and I opened it. And I saw it was 142 pages, and I'm like, "Good Lord!"
Yeah.
That being said, I read it in one sitting almost. Obviously, parts from a bathroom break or two. Just from a pure visual standpoint, looking at just the aesthetics of the comic itself, with the black pages, the black gutters, the art style.
I bought a physical copy from Amazon. Like I felt like this was the one to do it.
Yeah.
I usually go digital. Anyway, sorry.
The art style from Alex Cormack, even the lettering. Honestly, the lettering, Justin Birch, was incredible. So going to kind of what LJ was saying, the theme of the book. Everybody has seen like demon like movies, or read a demon book, or I've never seen it approached in this way before.
No.
The way that this story handles that subject, I've never seen it. I've legitimately never seen it done this way before, and it was really smart. It was really well done. And just to be totally transparent with you, so like the first 5 pages before the twist, before the switch up, the Freaky Friday, I was like, it's all right. It's all right. Like this is your standard. This is your standard demonic possession. Like it's going to be a story about how they get the demon. Now let's do it. Okay, I can hang with this.
Yeah.
But then the switch up happens, and I'm like, oh shoot. All right, I'm here for it. This is going to be sick. Like it was really cool.
Yeah.
I liked it. I'm not normally a go-to person for horror comics, even horror movies, honestly. But it was really well done. Really well done.
Yeah. I think that's why this book really stood out to me, is that the fact of like the story is just so engaging. Because like I had to, because we got sent this back when we first started reviewing comics back at kind of the start of the spring. Issue 6 of this was one of the issues that David Pepose had sent to us to check out. By the time he sent this to us, I had never read the series, so I got the other digital copies of the comic. And in my first time sitting down with it, I binged through this thing.
Yeah.
I got so engrossed in it. And kind of like you're saying, Nitro, like I've never seen a possession story like this. Not in this way. Because like you think, okay, it's a demon that's possessed and it's going to be the battle between him and the priest and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And even like the fact of like he's doubting his faith a little bit, or this is going to be the thing that's going to push him and he's going to have to find his faith and conquer the demon. And I'm like, even that's got a twist on it.
Yeah.
By the end of the book. And it's like, I've never seen it handled like this before, and it really kept me invested. And it's amazing to think the progression of the switch at the end of issue 1 to where we get to in issue 6 and how much happens, but yet it kind of makes sense what happens as well. It doesn't take any massive leaps in logic to get to some of those places.
Yeah.
But yet it's so insane how much it ramps up within just 6 issues.
And the thing is, like, you know, after that initial switch up, it doesn't slow down. Like,
No.
it plows, through this 142 pages.
At a breakneck speed. For
yeah. There's
so
no, like,
much happens,
there's no, like, lull. Now, some comics have lulls, and you're like, okay, here comes the dialogue. Here comes the 10 pages or whatever of dialogue or exposition or whatever. You don't, I mean, you get exposition in this, but it feels natural. It's part of the action. It's part of the story.
It's all within conversation. Yeah.
Dude, I think I mentioned it during my review as well. Like halfway through the story, it switches genres. I think it's like issue 3, it turns into the Count of Monte Cristo at one point. I'm like, what? Like, for like a whole issue, like, what the hell is going on? Where did this come from? Like, how is this fit in the middle of like a demon possession story? It's insane, but I love it. It's so well done. It's like, it's so well handled. And like you said, the imagery, the themes that are explored in it, the dialogue within it is just so spot on. And you really feel, by the time you get to issue 6, you really feel the visceral rivalry between with Father Vieri and with Legion, and the two of them going head to head. Like you really feel that this is, they're each other's nemesis. That this is a battle. It's almost like a Batman Joker level. Like we could do this forever. We're just going to keep coming back at each other for this.
And you're like, and right when you think you're like, oh, he's got him. It's like, nope, he doesn't.
Yeah,
something time.
There's one part. There's one part. All right, obviously, again, we're going to go into spoilers for the story.
Yeah, we're going into spoilers. Last chance. If you guys have not checked this out yet, please go and check it out first. But if you're along for the ride to see what happens, let's go for it.
So the big switch that, you know, we've kind of been hinting at the beginning of the book is, you know, we meet this demon possessed guy in a jail cell who's chained up. Santiago, I believe was his name. I'm not good with names in comics, but
yeah, especially the names in this. There are so many names we will probably forget them. Just putting that out there.
So apparently, there's been a lot of priests that have gone in that have gotten murdered by this guy and just torn apart. So they find this guy in the Vatican, I think, Vieri, and he comes there. And what ends up happening basically is he touches Father Vieri, and the demon goes into the Father Vieri, and then the priest goes into the dude who is demon possessed. So there's this like Freaky Friday, like body switch, soul switch thing that happens.
Yeah.
And later on in the book,
the Santiago
character is like, all right, if I'm in this body and I'm reacting to like holy symbols because he's still like have the demon possession type of stuff on him. He's like, all right, I'm going to do it my way then. And like you said, it turns into this Count of Monte Cristo. Like he uses his family's wealth to go and forge a sword made of Judas Iscariot's silver. Yeah, it's just really, really
it's
cool.
so well done. Like I love that demon possession thing on it because I love the twist on that, because the whole thing with demon possession is the crosses and holy symbols and that, like they can't touch that because they're unholy and they're demonic. And the great twist that this does on it is like it's got nothing to do with that. It's because there's two souls inside one body fighting against each other.
Yeah.
So Legion doesn't get affected once he goes into Father Vieri's body because he's there alone. So none of the symbols work. But Santiago's body is still reacting to it. In fact, the start of issue 2 is him getting tortured by these Inquisitors trying to force this demon out of him that happens to be Father Vieri.
The contrast between what was happening in that section of the book was insane, because you have Legion going, causing all kinds of chaos in the Vatican, and then you have Father Vieri being like, I'm not, I'm not him, I'm not the demon anymore, and it's just like, oh my gosh, that's probably one of my favorites.
I love it because you really get to the point though, you're like, how do you explain that of who you are? How do you explain that? Because it's like, oh, well, we've got tests if someone's demon possessed, and I'm like, but those aren't going to work in this situation.
Yeah.
And demons are liars, so you just sound like you're lying. So like you've got no way of proving what you're saying is true. You have to beat Legion yourself. He had no choice but to go after him himself.
There's a part in the book, just purely from a visual standpoint, again, going back to the lettering, there's a part in the book where Santiago / the real Vieri in one body are talking. I forgot the lady's name. Maria, that's it. He's talking to Maria. And then there's another scene that's juxtaposed with this one where the demon Legion in Vieri's body is talking to like the conclave or whatnot. And let me try to figure out the best way to put this. The speech bubbles when you're seeing Vieri, who's obviously Legion, are normal speech bubbles. But when the conversation goes on to the next panel, which is like a narrator's voice, it's the demon's voice. But it's the same conversation. And just like little things like that, I think like little small decisions like that from a visual standpoint help it just immerse you in it.
Yeah, they did that with the speech bubbles as well. It was so cool. Like whenever you saw Legion in Vieri's body like talking, it was the normal white speech bubbles and he was chatting the first couple of issues. But the more as Legion starts coming through and he starts causing chaos, the speech bubbles start to change to the black ones and it starts to come through just in all his dialogue until like you get to issue 6 and like it's all black dialogue. It is full blown psychotic Legion going. Yeah. It's like it's so well done visually.
And this comic is gory. So just a heads up, if you are not a fan of gore, this comic is filled with it.
Yeah, I'd like to point out, the issue I got sent to review was issue 6. The image, which I'm not going to put on the screen or anything, but I'll describe it of, basically, when Legion starts to go crazy in the Vatican, he starts to set up situations that kills all the other people in line. He kills the Pope and the people in line to become Pope, so he ends up becoming Pope. And then you see him at the start of issue 6 as the new Pope, was it Constantine III, sitting on the papal throne, surrounded by body, and I mean surrounded, like a tower of bodies under his throne, and a curtain of hanging bodies.
Like throughout the book, like before they even gets to that point, you're like, oh yeah, that's what he's going.
Like you see this and like, oh yeah, we've gone over the line here. This is that we've gone to the point of no return, and I'm like, oh, I seen that image when I had to review this book, and I'm like, I'm equally like, holy crap, that's horrific, but holy crap, that is an amazing visual as well. That one image, you don't even need dialogue on the page. It tells you exactly what frame of mind they're in. But yeah, if you're not a gore person, this is probably not the comic for you. It's a phenomenal story, and if you're okay with darker stuff, like the art alone is worth it in this book. Like Alex Cormack's art is phenomenal in here.
Yeah, it's really good.
Like, it's absolutely stunning.
It's very unique too. Like, I was trying to figure out what it reminded me of, and honestly, I can't think of anything that I can equate it to. It's just very unique. It's a unique quality to it.
With all the compliments to him in the world, the closest thing I can associate it to is Jock's work. Like from Witches.
Oh yeah,
like the stuff that he did in Witches, and maybe because like I love Witches, it's my favorite horror comic, so it's probably why it stuck out to me. But like the weird, not quite solid artwork where everything seems kind of like flowy and dark and unsettling, it really reminded me of that feeling that gave me. reading this as it starts to kind of transition into some of that, especially when you get to the fight between Vieri and Legion. Like, and when you're getting the fights between them, like, it's almost like everything else disappears. It's just them fighting and battling with each other. It is so good art. Like, I mean it with all the compliments. Like, Jock is one of my favorite artists of all time. The guy's just his work's stunning. And 100% Alex Cormack did a phenomenal job capturing that same unsettling feeling when he did this. But like, even just the normal art that he does, everything has a very dark and gritty feel to it. Everything feels like this overcast. Like, it feels like you're in a horror comic. Everything feels like it's in shadow and there's like a dark cloud over everything. Like, you know what you're getting in for. Like, just from the visuals alone, like, this is not going to go well.
Yeah, and even honestly, even the choice of their panel layout, because this is something that I've noticed recently, just lay it out the panels. The beginning of the story, everything is just vertical, horizontal. Everything is other than when the demon is on screen, and everything is slanted. There's the panels are askew, but then when it goes back to normal talking or normal characters, it's all back to normal, and it's just again subtle, like little things like that, just like subconsciously, just like immerse you into the story.
I think after our conversation we had with Neil Gibson from Twisted Dark, which shout out to Neil, by the way, legend of a man, he was amazing to talk to. Getting to pick his brain about that stuff and realizing that little stuff is the stuff that elevates a book.
Yeah.
That little stuff elevates the artwork so much, because it'd be so easy just to do straightforward panels and like, oh yeah, well the art's creepy enough to sell it, but you're literally molding the page and the panels into shapes to sell what the book is and how horrific it is and how scary this situation is. The fact of like, no, you should be uneasy, you should be unsettled, this is not right, things are not okay. Just from the visuals alone, let alone the dialogue on top of it. And shout out to David Pepose as well. The dialogue in this is phenomenal. The story and the dialogue is spot on. At no point did I have a bit where I went, oh, that feels a bit awkward.
And I will say, so obviously coming from a Christian perspective and reading a story about an exorcism and, you know, Catholicism and Judaism towards the end, a lot of times when you watch movies or you read books that have anything to do with Christian that are written not necessarily from a Christian like point of view or a Christian background, you're like, that's not really accurate, or that's off, or that's really corny. I can say, like, I'm not Catholic or anything like that, but I can say just from a pure Christianity standpoint, like, nothing stood out to me where I was like, he didn't do his research. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not right.
It's a sense of reverence to me. Like, it's not like, oh, I'm going to include these themes just to bash them at the end. It's like, oh no, like there is a reverence for them.
Well, like, and even when Legion like is desecrating holy things or holy places or whatnot, it's not like, that's not like put on a pedestal, like, yeah, look at this.
It's just like, that's what a demon is gonna do. Like,
it's responded to by like horror, like abstract horror, like, no, this is not right, this is not the way, that type stuff. So I thought that was, you know, I was really pleased with how they approached it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and this is us coming as like three guys who grew up in the church and were, you know, we grew up around the church, we were all Christians, we've, you know, been around this stuff all our lives. Like, I can't say there's anything here. It's one of those weird things of like that. It's like there's nothing in here I would say is like heretical. And even the stuff you're kind of like you said, Legion does against the church, and I'm like, but he's a demon.
Yeah.
He's meant to be the bad guy. He's meant to do the awful things. It's like, I never understand that when people are like that. It's like, you can't have them doing that, like, but they're the bad guy, they're meant to do bad things. That's how you sell that they're a bad guy.
Yeah.
He's a demon that's taken over a priest. Of course he's going to go back to the Vatican and cause havoc. Of course he is. It's like, but it was so well done, and it was so, and because it wasn't even a case of like, because I love the whole faith journey as well of Vieri, which is a big part of it, because this whole thing is like, he's a priest and he's a freaking trained exorcist, one of the few that they have. And he really has to come to terms with the fact of like, I don't really believe anymore what we're doing here. I don't believe in it. And it's like, what does that mean for him as a priest? And like, even Legion throws it in his face a couple of times, like, you don't have any power over me because you don't believe this. And And I love that because I've had this conversation with my wife a few times of like, we give so much reverence to certain things, and it's like, especially in the church, coming from a church background, it's like there's so much reverence to things, and it's like, it's just a symbol though.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have power unless you give it power. It doesn't have like, a cross is just a cross. It doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Like without any belief, without any faith, without any of that stuff in it, why would you expect just a cross to do anything?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And it's like, and I love that challenge of his faith. And it's like, and I also love the fact that it didn't shy away as well from the kind of era that this was seemed to be set in. I can't remember if there was a specific year, but like the era it was set in, like
1740. I think.
The church was doing some dodgy stuff.
Yeah.
Like even
we get to issue 6 and we find out, oh yeah, like he was just taken.
Yeah.
The church just took him for his mom and like and living on the streets in like the Jewish part of the town that was mentioned before. Like, yeah, he was just taken and like, oh yeah, we'll raise him, right? Don't worry. Like, what?
Oh, okay.
You just kidnapped a kid. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And I love that. I love the faith as well, is like because like he then holds up, like because he sends Maria obviously to go get the sword of Judas at the end to fight Legion when he comes back. But like the holding up of the symbol, the other thing he asked, and to be like the Star of David.
That's what had the power.
And the realization of like who I am, that was a really powerful moment because coming from a place of faith and coming from a place of recently, and my wife going through stuff as well recently of learning who we are and how that interconnects with our faith.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that.
Like, that was something that was a really powerful journey for us. And it's something I'm still going through of realizing, like, who I am, where I actually stand on things, and how that interconnects with faith and not just blindly following what things, like, and realizing, no, he's been blindly doing what he's told, but there's always been this thing that had to be addressed. And now he's like, I understand who I am, and realizing who he is. It's like, I now feel like I have a purpose. I'm free to be me. And then he still calls on the exact same God to fight Legion.
Yeah.
Because he calls on the God of his ancestors, who is Yahweh, who is the same God that we worship as Christians. And it's like, so it's not like always calling on a different God or anything like that, or even like any sort of big anti-Christian message. That it's like, I had to discover who I was to have faith in God again and to have faith in myself. And I'm like, that's a really powerful message actually to have.
It is.
And it's a really powerful journey to see a character going on, you know, and it was such a juxtaposition to what you usually get in these situations, because usually it's like, oh, he had, you know, he was lacking in faith, and but this battle with the demon, and now he has his faith restored now because he's seen the good that can be done. No, it's not that simple. It's not that basic an answer.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I loved it. I loved the twists that David gave this book.
Yeah, the battle at the end with Legion, between Legion and the area, was incredible.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like single page spreads or just like 2 panels on the page, and it's like the whole issue of issue 6 is just like, all right, we're going to let this conflict, we've been building up this conflict for 5 issues. We're going to let this sucker just play out and breathe.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just really liked how they approached it.
Yeah.
It's a proper scrap.
Yes.
So to speak.
Yeah, and I love that it builds to that as well. Because it's like, it feels like there's been a lot of, it's been almost like a chess game up until that point. Like, there's been slight movements, there's been attempts to catch each other, they've gotten close a few times. But for the most part, it's been a war of words and battling of wits. And then in issue 6, like, they just screw it.
Yeah.
Full on war with each other.
Yeah.
Well, and even the way that they approach Legion with, you know, once he infiltrates the Vatican and he starts to enact his plan and stuff like that, you're like, all right, he's going to go low-key under the radar. So, like, nobody knows who he is, so he can just do what he needs to do. Nope. No, he doesn't. He just straight up starts murdering people and just doing whatever he wants to do. And, like, it's funny because, like, he'll try to act he tries to do things discreetly, and then somebody's like, "Wait a minute," and they just immediately get got, and he's like, "All right, we're just gonna do it my way."
Yeah.
I think the best kind of example of him doing that actually that really stands out to me is when we were talking about the Count of Monte Cristo issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like when he's already killed, what was his name? Mancini? The other priest has been like hounding him as Vieri for like the whole comic. He's thrown out the window. Vieri and Maria run for it. And then they've got that like drunkard priest that's kind of like just wandering about with him, all of a sudden stands up to him and he just immediately gets murdered.
Yeah, Gabriel,
in the room.
Punches a hole in him.
Full of guards. And then he's like, oh, well, I guess we're leaving no witnesses. And he just turns and murders them. And then he just goes back to the Vatican. And
trying to get that 5-star GTA.
And not only does he go back to the Vatican, he then starts to blame Pentecost.
Yeah.
The Cardinal Pentecost, he starts to blame him. It's your fault. Why was I followed? Why was I chased after? Are you possessed by the demon? Do you have that? And he starts to turn them against him. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's like, how is he getting away with this?
Kind of through the book, you're like, how stupid are these guys? Like,
I don't know. I've been to a few churches. I'm just saying, like, some of them is like that. They hear that and they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. It's like, no, like, ask a question, please. Like, seriously.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like Arnold Pentecost. He's the demon. Oh yeah, that makes it. Yeah, that makes him.
Yeah, we're gonna go along with that.
Yeah, we're just going with that.
Sounds right.
Like what?
Yeah,
sounds about right.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh. I think the thing I didn't expect.
I have the comic up over my left screen, and I'm just flipping through the panels. It's just gorgeous.
That's what I've been doing.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Hey there, Comic Clan. Did you know that Comics in the Cross are also on Patreon as well? For as little as just $2 a month, you can get access to all of our content from YouTube early before it drops here. That includes reviews for our comic books, tabletop gaming and video game channels, as well as the Indie Comic Book Club and our Let's Talk Comic interview show. Also, there is exclusive content available just to our Patreon subscribers. That includes watch-alongs, interviews, and a lot of behind-the-scenes information and goings-on in Comics in the Cross. If this sounds like something you'd be interested in checking out, then please go and check out the link for patreon.com/comicsinthecross. And if you do choose to support us and partner with us, then we are super grateful for that. And thank you so much for your kind and generous support. But for now, that's all from me. Let's head on back into your video. No, you're good. I was going to say, I think the thing I didn't expect is, honestly, this book was something I didn't expect it to be, and that was, honestly, it was a fun read.
Yeah.
It was such an enjoyable story to go through. Like, fun is not usually a word I use to describe horror stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love thriller stuff, and I love something that can get the adrenaline pumping.
Yeah.
But this was honestly just such a fun, enjoyable read, and so well put together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, I pulled it up and I saw it was 142 pages, and I'm like, choo! Yeah. Okay, let's do this. And I didn't honestly want to stop reading. Like, I read it all the way through almost in one sitting. It was really, really cool. I don't do that a lot.
Yeah.
Because there'd be sometimes, like very rarely, but there's been once or twice where, I've gone to review a comic and I'm just like it's like you're having to push through and you're having to just read it just to make sure that you understand the comic and make sure that you can, speak your piece and stuff like that. But that was not the case with this one.
No.
Yeah.
No, it was well done, and I'm like, I think I like the fact as well it's a one and done. Like it's 6 issues, beginning, middle, end. Like it's left open ended. The Vieri is going to travel and is going to basically, because he can't go back to being Pope after what the Legion did as him. So he's like, no, we're just going to say that he's dead and I'm just going to travel, and I'm sure there's other devils out there to fight. And it's left open, like there could be a sequel. We could follow Vieri's journey, or it could just be left at that, which I think is a really cool thing.
Yeah, that's totally fine too.
Even the rat at the bottom of the panel, bottom of the last panel with the red glowing eyes, you're like, oh shoot, he didn't get killed.
That would be like
Or
a post-credit scene or something.
yeah. Like a Marvel movie over here.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like everything's just left open-ended enough of like we could do more, but like if we don't, it's a nice tied up ending to this story.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate with in a world where everything has to have sequels and spin-offs and freaking everything else. I appreciate something that's just this is a story.
Yeah.
And we're done with that. And that's us telling our story. It's over. You know, we don't need to go back to it. And I'm like, there's very few things that do that.
Yeah. Just going back to the art, man. I'm just flipping through this again. Just the art is incredible, and also special shout out to the colorist. I guess it was Alex as well.
Was it Alex? Yeah, he was a colorist as well. Yeah,
it's gotta be.
Man,
Okay, that makes sense.
It's perfect.
Because there's had to have been some fun stuff to try to color in this comic, like for sure.
Yeah, it's perfect, man.
I mean,
there's a texture, right? There's a texture on every page, and like it's almost like you can feel it or breathe it in or smell it.
Or the horror aesthetic, I feel like that's on point. Like that's like,
yeah. I mean, like I can only understand why he probably colored it, because imagine drawing this stuff and then handing it over to a colorist and going, fill that in.
Really?
How do I do that? Yeah.
Really? Just color everything red, please.
Yeah. I want to make a comment on the lettering again.
Yeah,
there was one point where there was one of the characters was dying, and it's probably a trick that's been used like tons of times in comics, but as he's dying and fading, his text, his words just get smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is smart. I was
so
like,
cool.
Yeah, I like that.
I think it was his mom, like when he found her in the street, or not. Or that wasn't his mom.
No, it was
the old lady that he found.
Old lady, yeah, that's right.
It was the original Marquis as well.
Oh yeah, okay.
After when they're fighting, and then he's like, "Oh my heart," like, and then
that's right.
And he's trying to, and then I think even the prayer. I don't know if it's necessarily that even the prayer gets louder as this is happening. I need to go back and look at that. But it's just watching those words get smaller. I'm like, oh, like that brings a visualization.
Yeah.
Other than what's already on the page, happening.
It's the little things. Like the more I hear about the actual creation of comics, and I talk to comic creators and stuff like that, and what actually goes, like the psychology behind it and the thought process that goes behind actually creating a comic. Like you said, Cross, it's the little things. It's the panel layout. It's the choice of lettering that you do. It's how you put the letters on the page. It's the type of colors that you use.
The other page is kind of horrific, so I'm trying not to show it in camera. But like the lettering you're talking about there, like you see it getting smaller. Yeah. I also love this that you see like for like 2 panels before it. You see the dialogue boxes, like the word balloons, starting to shake, like he's starting to lose his breath, and you can see it. And it's like, and then it gets to the final one, and you start to see the letters getting smaller. So you've almost got that build up to it. And there was another lettering thing I loved as well. It was in issue 6. It's when Legion's doing one of his big monologue bits, and it's when Vieri first shows up, and he starts saying the Lord's Prayer. But it's like almost like this, it's a lowered down kind of like balloon, and it's almost like grayed out lettering. And I noticed it because we talked to Neil Gibson the other day, Nitro, about it, and talking about that when he said that, like he gets them to like grey out lettering and stuff for something that's quieter rather than make it smaller, just because like he says my eyesight's going, and it's like, so it's like he's talking at the volume but it's in the background, and then as he gradually has noticed, it turns to black writing. As Legion notices it, and like, that's a really cool visual of like this being a background noise that's coming to Legion's focus, and like, wait a minute, what is that?
I didn't even notice that. That's really cool.
And like, it's so well done. Like, see, that's the thing though, when you get a really good letterer, like shout out Justin Birch is the letterer for this. Phenomenal work. But that's the thing, lettering always gets overlooked, because if you get a comic with really good lettering, you don't notice it because you're so immersed.
That's the type of stuff I would have never noticed if like I wasn't doing this with you guys completely.
Yeah, like literally I never used to notice this stuff until we started reviewing and talking to creators and stuff. It's like, it's so well put together, and it's like, it's those visual triggers like we talked about in the art. Visual triggers of lettering is such an underappreciated art form, because it helps sell the art so well. And if it's done well, you'd never notice it. It just adds. But I promise you, if you see one with bad lighting, you will notice it immediately.
Immediately.
Yeah.
It's like I go back to it's like those bands where, man, the drummer's amazing, the guitarist is amazing, the bassist is on point, but then the lead singer, you're like, ooh. I mean, I'll listen to it, but I doubt it's definitely not as good as it could be. You know,
why is the first
it's
thing?
like something's up.
Why I just love it. The first thing that came to my head there was Motorhead, like, or you could just be like Motorhead, where it's like you just yell into the mic and just drown out every bit of bad singing that you do and just shout everything.
Yeah,
that's really true.
Yeah,
which no shot against Motorhead. I love Motorhead, but like, yeah, 100%.
I never looked at it that way. I'm like, oh, dang, you're right.
Yeah.
But no, absolutely.
But I mean, everything in this comic, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but everything makes the comic work together. Like the writing, the lettering, the coloring, the art, the panel layout, even the color choice of the page and the gutters of just pure black.
Yeah.
It just, all of that accumulates and complements. That's the word I'm looking for. Complements each other and just builds this really cool foundation for this awesome horror comic.
It's very harmonic. It makes a very beautiful harmony as it all comes together, which is something that only when you actually stop and analyze it do you understand that with putting a comic together, that trying to find something that's where everything comes together like that is tough, where the story's on point, the dialogue's on point, the characters are on point, the artwork's on point, the atmosphere's on point, the coloring's on point, the lettering's on point, and they all sell this one story and keep it all together. And like, it's beautiful when it happens. It really is. Let me see. I want to see if there's stuff to jump back into, because we're very much talking about one of the things that we always end up ranting about, like the actual creation of the comic itself. But yeah, I think we've talked. Oh, sorry, I just hit on a page there that's stunning. I have to share. Like, look at look at this.
It's like, it looks like a bunch of photos are scattered on a table, but it's the progression of a story. It's so cool.
So well done.
Also,
no, go ahead, LJ. I'm sorry, dude. I cut you off.
No, you're good. No, I was just gonna say, so as we do this, I think about two things. One of them is, I usually think, oh, can I recommend this to somebody, or who can I recommend this to? And then, so the big thing is, like, I feel like there's definitely a select group. Like, I feel like this is definitely more of a casual, especially since it's one story. There's definitely a certain group. Like, obviously, there's people I know I can think of offhand that, like, I'm like, ooh, I know who would love this comic.
Yeah.
I can think of at least two people I know that I can be like, you know what, here, read this. But it's definitely one of those things. Like, I definitely couldn't recommend this to like any casual comic.
Yeah, I would agree.
Or anybody who hasn't really read comics. And then the other thing I really like to look at is, just because we're in that world, I can't help but think about it, is whether it would work good as an adaptation. I feel like out of the ones I've done with you guys so far, I would really love to see. I mean, obviously, this has heavy imagery, and they don't necessarily need to do all of that imagery. But this is a story, like, I think it's good enough for people who would, like, they could do a movie out of this.
Yeah, I would agree.
And so it's just like, ooh, like, if there was a way for me to show this to people without being like, oh, hey, read a comic, like, I would want this to be made into a movie. Like, this would work best, I think, as like a movie, and I think it would do really well, really fast.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Well.
Yeah.
I think it'd be great for it. I think it's definitely the way the story goes and the genre of it. I think it's almost like perfect, especially as a one and done. It's perfect for that adaptation. My only worriment for that, with it going into a movie form, would be, would it lose that visual appeal? It would have to have enough money put in the right places to create the same atmosphere and visuals as this. Yeah,
the imagery would definitely be really hard, especially thinking of, scenes we've already mentioned.
Yeah.
But I'm like, they I feel like we've seen a lot of grotesque things on screen on some of these.
Oh yeah, I think that's it.
So like,
I'm just looking at that one panel where those bodies are hanging from the ceiling.
Yeah,
Just...
I'm like, they could do it, and they don't necessarily need to have like, you don't need to show all those bodies.
Yeah,
like,
but the thing is, it's like if it's
ways
marketed as a horror movie, you've got horror movies that do that stuff, like
Yeah,
that are gratuitous violence and all that sort of stuff, and don't fit the story. And I'm like, whereas like weird as it sounds, I feel like that's the sort of violence in this. It does fit the story.
Yeah,
I'm not a big person on violence for violence sake in a story.
Same.
Sell me the story, make it make sense.
Yeah.
You know, same with like, that's been one of my complaints for like when people do like R-rated movies. Is it's like they get an R rating and like, oh, we need to throw in more violence and more sex scenes and more this and more. Like, but does it make sense? Don't just throw it in because you can. Tell me a story.
If they felt like they had to go that way, it would actually make sense for this story.
Yeah, I feel like the violence in this makes sense for the story because I like. It's a weird comparison, but I don't know if it's just because it's the religious themes that came to it. It reminds me of like the arguments when The Passion of the Christ came out. And people were complaining about the violence and that. And it was like, but it's a realistic interpretation of the life of Christ.
Yeah.
And what Christ went through in that. With this one, it's the case of, it's a demon taking over the Vatican, essentially.
Yeah.
Becoming the Pope and literally unleashing hell on earth.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that would be this, like, pissy little fight in the streets? Like, this would be a massacre.
Yeah.
This would be horrific.
Streets literally running with blood.
Yeah, that's the level that the story has sold it as, and it delivers that. And I think it fits, though.
Yeah.
Because if it's a demon that's taken over that position and wants to... I mean, he literally gloats to Vieri about the fact of taking over, like, what's better than killing priests, like, than sitting in God's house and mocking him.
Yeah.
Essentially. And I'm like...
yeah.
It's like... This is not meant to be a good guy. It's meant to be a bad guy. And I'm like, don't get me wrong. I get people are going to be against gratuitous violence, but in this, I think it fits. Although I do agree with you, LG. I think it definitely is for a select audience, though. This is not a book that I would recommend everyone picks up. Know your taste. This is definitely for mature readers that are okay with violence and grotesqueness and dark stories.
Yeah.
But if you can get through that stuff, or that stuff doesn't bother you, the story here, I think, is phenomenal.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, Vieri is possibly one of my favourite characters and probably favourite, like, protagonists that we've read about on Indie Comic Book Club, to be honest. Like, you can't help but get behind the guy.
Yeah.
He's so tenacious and just will not let up.
His journey is very relatable to mine.
He's got such a phenomenal journey, and just every step to go for Legion at any point he could die. At one point, he pretty much does.
Yeah.
At one point, like, he's got him on the roof, and Legion throws a cross at him, sets him on fire because of the two souls in his body. He crashes through a boat while on fire, sets the boat on fire. It's crashing on top of him, and he's starting to drown. He's essentially dead.
Yeah.
But then he's got to go through a mindscape and pull not just himself, but Santiago, who's in here and is basically given up and is like, I'm a horrible person, just let me die.
Yeah.
And rouse him round to get back up and like, no, we need to stop this. And I'm like, you can't help but get behind the guy. It's like, he's just such a great character, and the journey he goes on is just so well written as well.
Yeah.
For a 6-issue journey, like character arc.
Even Legion too. Like, Legion is really
phenomenal villain.
Like, for a demon, you're teaching a man a lot about it. I mean, who's the real winner there? Like, you know?
Yeah. In all honesty, I love that at the end. That's kind of what happens. Like, Legion kind of is his own undoing because he pushed Vieri to this.
Yes.
And I'm like, you were kind of the reason that he was able to beat you is because you pushed him to this extreme to look inside himself and challenge himself. And it's like, but it's like, he's such a phenomenal villain. Like, I love a good villain. It's just, you just want to hate him.
Yeah.
And you just want to go against him. And Legion's just phenomenal. And shout out as well to the other characters in this as well. Big shout out as well to Maria, who is the lead female character in this and kind of like the ride along with Vieri. It'd be so easy for her just to be like a cardboard cutout of a character.
Yeah.
She gets some hits in.
But she's a pretty badass. It's like, because she's helped. Because even like, because the first couple of issues, she kind of is. She just seems like the nice little church girl. Oh, yes, Father, I'll help you.
A mainstay, to be honest. Like, I was like, oh, okay, cool.
But I love that she basically plays along as his wife when they do the whole Count of Monte Cristo thing, and is even the one that lures Legion up to the room.
Yes.
Like, she completely plays him and lures him to the room. Very much, just because we just did it on Monday, shout out to Chronicles of Andrasia and my own wife luring the big bad away during that session. But massive, like, compliments for doing that. And then even the fact of, like, when Legion's trying to hunt them down, like, she takes, like, Vieri's clothes and Ryde's pretending to be him, and then she takes some shots as well. Like, and then when she thinks Vieri's dead, she's like, okay, I guess I'm doing this then.
Yeah.
And she goes to the church and, like, goes to, like, Colonel Pentecost and goes to, like, okay, where's the blade? How do we beat him? We need to stop this. It's like, she's actually kind of badass when she starts, when it gets going. Like, she does hold her own.
Mm-hmm.
Although I will say there was a moment, I think it's in, is it issue 5 or 6, like when Vieri comes back, she gives him a hug that I was kind of like, is there a little thing going there now? Is that a thing?
I noticed that too. Yeah.
I'm like, this is weird because your fiance's in there, but you've also been hanging out with this dude that now looks like your fiance, but it's a totally different personality. It was a very...
Yeah.
Like, obviously they didn't go like that. She ends up back with Santiago and stuff because that'd have been weird. But it's like,
and it's funny because in that panel, Santiago's in the background going like, "Hey!"
Like, he's just happy, and I'm like, it's like, dude.
One more thing I will say about the visuals. I know I've harped on them a lot. Just from a pure color standpoint, the book starts off really muted. Like, obviously, other than the blood and the violence and stuff like that, it's pretty muted and just neutrals and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But as the story starts ramping up, as the violence starts ramping up, as the chaos starts ramping up, if you flip through the pages briefly, you'll see the colors. Like, even the final battle between Legion and Vieri, there's like purples and stained glass and
it's
reds and oranges and blues and greens. It's beautiful.
It's so bright and colorful. It's so well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, cause, like we were saying, like, it's very doom and overcast at the beginning, but by the end, like, there's so many colors and so much stuff, and it's like, it's just, it's almost like everything in the book builds to this beautiful crescendo of everything coming together, and this big last oomph, whether it's the visuals, the story, the dialogue, the fight.
This page right here is just so unhinged.
Yeah.
Like, this particular page.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the art in this is absolutely stunning. It's just, I think that's the thing. Like, it's one of those things. Like, the stuff is, because of how, like, grotesque and stuff a lot of it can be. For people, I don't want to put too much on camera, but it's like, go and check this out for the art alone. Like, Alex Cormack, man, is a freaking genius. Like, the guy's a phenomenal artist.
I really want to see what else he's done.
I want to check out more of his stuff. Like, the guy's a phenomenal artist. Like, and usually, like, the first thing that grabs me, I'm not an artist by any means. I suck. I can barely draw stick figures. You know, it's like I always get gravitated to stories. I'm always grabbed by a good story. I'm a storyteller at heart. That's who I am. But the visuals in this are just so captivating. It's hard to ignore the role it plays in telling the story. I've always said that, excuse me, the thing about comics is it's a dual medium. It's story writing and it's art and visuals. And both of those things should be working together. You should be showing, not telling, where you can. You shouldn't be doing a ton of dialogue and should be showing artwork.
So it sounds like he's known for doing this kind of artwork for horror stuff. Because I don't know what a Bram Stoker award, but he's definitely a
Bram Stoker. Okay.
I'm like, well, there you go.
Yeah, Bram Stoker award. I'm like, yep, that makes sense.
Whose work includes Breath of Shadow, Sea of Sorrows, Road of Bones, The Crimson Cage, Sink, Ghosts on the Water, Killing Hope.
The Bram Stoker Award is a recognition presented annually by the Horror Writers Association for superior achievement in dark fantasy or horror writing.
There we go.
Yeah. I mean, the dude's, as far as I'm concerned, is a king of horror. Like, the stuff is just amazing. Like, it's absolutely phenomenal.
It's like he was built to illustrate horror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He really was. And like this book is just a showcase of it.
Mm-hmm.
And him and David Pepose working on this book together is just amazing. Like David doesn't use dialogue where Alex's visuals work and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
They work so harmoniously in this, and it's like the truth is as well. Like I keep trying to think of other stuff to say.
I know,
because this feels like a very short indie comic book club. But the honest truth is, the story is so simple.
Yeah, it's very straightforward.
His
And again,
Cormack Illustrator.
Again, 142 pages. This story zooms.
Yeah,
this story like it reads very quick.
The story literally goes: Vieri getting given his mission to go to exorcise Santiago, goes to Spain, goes into to exorcise him. They switch places. He goes back to the Vatican. Vieri's stuck, gets tortured, gets freed by Maria. The Santiago's father dies, they get his money, so they come back and do the whole Count of Monte Cristo thing, try and trap Legion at a big lavish party. It goes wrong. They go on the run. He starts to kill, Legion starts to kill people at the Vatican. Vieri challenges him, almost gets killed, and then he's killed enough people that Legion becomes Pope, and Vieri has to come and stop him. And in the midst of this, you've got the flashbacks to Vieri's backstory that lead to the revelation that he is a Jew, and that's where the power kind of comes from. And it's like, is realizing who he is, and it's like, that's it.
Yeah,
that's the story. The story isn't any more complicated than that.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a lot more twists and turns to it, but it's like, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, we could spend an hour or two going through the spectacular details of the story, but like you said, it's a very straightforward story.
It's straightforward
done really well.
story, but yet it's done so well, and it's like it is such an enjoyable one. Like for our first, I always have a soft spot for doing these October indie comic book clubs because there's such a specific genre of horror comic out there. And October is the anniversary of when we did our first indie comic book club. We did Lock and Key as our very first one. We kicked it off with a horror book. So this genre of comics always has a very special place for me. And I think the first one back since we restarted doing these for October, this was perfect for it.
Yeah.
I cannot give you any more out of this book.
Yeah,
by us talking it through.
This is definitely my favorite book we've done.
Yeah,
like easy.
Yeah,
like, since I've been doing this with you guys.
No, absolutely. You have to experience this book. You have to experience the art. You have to get engrossed with it. You have to get immersed in the story. So I will put links down below. Please go and check it out. Even if you've listened to us, and even if we've spoiled a lot of the stuff to talk about it. Go experience it for yourself. Even just for the art alone, it is worth it. It is absolutely worth it. But no, I think this is a phenomenal book. I'm more than happy that we read this. I was really glad to get to go through this again. Phenomenal work. Is there anything else to the story? Anything else to the visuals? Anything else that you all want to mention specifically about this?
I feel like I've said everything that I want to say. Again, huge shout out to Dave Pepose, huge shout out to Alex Cormack, and another huge shout out to Justin Birch. Just from the storytelling and the art and the lettering, it's just incredible. I know there were other people involved in the book, but man, those three things just worked so harmoniously together, and this book is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Any last words or any last thoughts, LJ?
I just think it's cool that, like, you said you got introduced to this through issue 6, right? And then when we just started getting back into the comic review, like when you started doing the comic reviews, and we essentially turned into like a YouTube channel network. I just think it's neat how you came about this, and it was like, and you're like, oh, we should check this out. I mean, and y'all already have history with David Pepose as well, so it's just, I think it's really cool. I just like. The discoverability of these books is why we do this. Like me literally getting on Amazon, ordering this book, and then Klaus, which y'all have talked up a bunch. Like, so it's just like the organic way we came across this book. I think is awesome too, and like we genuinely enjoy it. Like, there's really not many things I can say are like a down.
Yeah.
at all.
Oh, I will say one more, just a special shout out to Dave Pepose. Like, for those of you who don't know, he was one of the first people that we interviewed for like the actual, was a legit comic book author. And he had a couple Kickstarter campaigns, Scouts Honor, the OZ, which was kind of like a Wizard of Oz set in like a Fallout like universe type deal.
Ooh,
So cool.
And
very
like,
cool. Sorry.
They were amazing.
Yeah.
But I will say, having read some of his stuff over the years up till this, even Space Ghost and stuff like that, he's gotten so good. He's gotten really, really good. Not that he wasn't good before, but man, this slaps. This Devil That Wears My Face is so well written.
Yeah.
So, Dave, if you're listening to this, which I don't know if you are or not, but amazing.
I'm glad I got a
listening.
physical.
Big fan.
I'm glad I got a physical copy because like I've been doing these digitally.
Yeah.
Ironically, this was the one that I like took to work with me because I couldn't put it
Nice.
down. I'm like, yeah,
Have
this is the
somebody
one.
flip through it.
This is the one you don't want to leave sitting on the table just because.
Yeah, that's the one that somebody walks in when you're on the wrong page and it's kind of like, okay, we need to have a conversation.
Yeah. I'm gonna call the cops.
Imagine walking by like, what are you reading?
No, this, yeah, absolutely. This, and I having to think about it, I think this is the first time I've seen a book that I think is this, and it's the same word I've used, and I'll use it one more time. It's the most harmonious book I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm. That's a good word for it.
That we've done on Indie Comic Book Club, and Nitro and I have been doing this for a while. We've done quite a few of these at this point. Mm-hmm. It's the first one I would say is like where everything just fit perfectly.
I do wish we had Joy here to try to pick it apart. I'm just gonna say,
yeah,
because she's
still gonna read it. I'm still gonna get her to read it.
No, yeah. I really want to know her thoughts on it because she looks at it from all angles. And, so it's like
she's always a good one to have on the show. Which massive shout out to Joy. I hope you're doing well, sweetheart. We're missing your voice here, and hopefully we'll be back for next month's. But yeah, she always brings a completely different perspective from us on this. That's probably why today's show's like an hour and not 2. Because like that's like, yeah, we all agree this is great, go read it. Hey. And it's like, and she goes, I didn't like this, and like creates a new conversation.
Let's talk about it. Yeah,
but we need that though. Like we definitely
like Gran and what's her future.
Oh my goodness, she had such a bone to pick with that old lady last time, and I'm like, oh, here we go.
So funny. I love it.
Which, by the way, if you've not watched it, go and check out our Indie Comic Book Club from last month. Once in future, we had an absolute blast. First time we've had all 4 of us on to actually talk it, and so far to date, the only one where we've had all 4 of us on. So
yeah,
we'll see if that happens ever again, or if this is going to be a rotating cast most of the time. But yeah, I think that's everything from us. Like I said, links are down below. Please go and check out these amazing creators and this amazing book. If you were here, thank you so much for supporting us and checking out our video if you've made it all the way to the end. You can also see we've got a affiliate up in the corner of the screen of our overlay. For BCW, use code COMICSCROSS, save 10% on any purchases with BCW supplies, which of course if you are a comic collector like we are, then 100% is stuff that you're going to absolutely need, because all comic collectors need them. So go and check them out, go and pick up their stuff, especially, hey, you know what, Christmas is coming up in a couple of months. I bet those comic collectors in your life could use some stuff to stock up. I know I need some new ones, to be honest. I've run out of space desperately.
I need a new one box.
Also as well, if you are wanting to support us even further than that, for as little as $2 a month, you can support us over on our Patreon, where you will get early access to all of these videos. Please go and check them out over there if you want to support us further. But if not, no worries, all of our stuff is early access over there, and it will drop here on YouTube afterwards. So don't worry about that. It's like we're just grateful for you to be here support. Remember to go down below and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos from us, including next month's Indie Comic Book Club, which we will be posting hopefully soon. What it is, we've not decided on the official book yet. And go and like the video as well. We appreciate it. But that's everything from us for today. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And remember, it's a good week to be a geek. Take care. We'll see you all later. Peace.